Spanish government has begun implementing direct rule over Catalonia, a day after its parliament declared independence. Madrid has stripped the region of its autonomy, and the Interior Ministry of the national government has taken control of the regional police force. In the last hour, Catalonia's regional president, Carles Puigdemont, has called for democratic opposition to Madrid's move. Our correspondent Gavin Lee reports now from Barcelona in Catalonia.
Squashing the insurrection. The spread of headlines across Spanish newspapers this morning read the same. The Spanish government has opted for the so-called nuclear option to deal with Catalan separatists after their proclamation of independence yesterday. The region's parliament has been dissolved, separatist leaders will be removed from office, and elections have been called just before Christmas. In Barcelona, the clampdown didn't stop thousands of Catalan independence seekers claiming victory, partying into the night, singing songs of liberation. Tense moments too, with confrontations between those on both sides.
It's calm here now in Plaza Sant Jaume after last night's celebrations, but many on both sides are now asking exactly the same question. How does the government in Madrid assert its authority here? And separatists talk about protecting, defending the institutions if the Spanish government tries to forcibly remove Carles Puigdemont and his separatist cabinet.
I think that there are a lot of things that we haven't resolved yet from the past, and today and yesterday was very important days. Yeah.
To throw out the government that the people elected and install themselves, this is an attack. They want war.
I've lived in Catalonia for 11 years, but I'm from Madrid. For me, I am Spanish. I'm not going to stop being Spanish, and I have a child who was born in Catalonia, but I don't want him to stop being Spanish. But I also believe you can't silence so many people. We are supposed to be living in a democracy, and you have to listen to the people.
It's now emerged that Spain's Deputy Prime Minister, Soraya Sáenz de Santamaría, has been placed in de facto charge of Catalonia. And the fate of Carles Puigdemont, the man who still regards himself as leader, is unclear. It's understood he and his cabinet may be facing charges of rebellion, which carries a 30-year sentence for acting against the state.
That was Gavin Lee reporting me there. Well, joining me now via webcam is Dr. George Kiris. He's a lecturer in international and European politics at the University of Birmingham. Thank you for joining us this afternoon on BBC News. It's a momentous day, not only in Catalonia, but Spain and possibly the EU as well.
Yeah, in some ways it's a very significant day and days, and in other ways it really is not. So it's I think it is significant because it shows that the confrontation is ongoing. But on the other hand, I guess the declaration of independence is not really significant if nobody actually recognizes it. And there are many signs that any state, or indeed the European Union, will recognize Catalonia's declaration of independence.
So if you say, if it's unrecognized by key states, key heads around the world, does this indicate that it will just be this is a symbolic move? The reality is it means nothing. Yeah,
I mean, we can never be sure what were the hopes of the separatists, but as you say, the reality is that this is not going to be recognized. So I think in the medium to the long term, the only viable option for separatists, but also Spain, is to start talking to each other, negotiating some form of compromise. But crucially, it will have to be a much more consensual process to what we have seen in compared to what we have seen so far.
What would this compromise possibly look like?
Possibly a new discussion of arrangements under which Catalonia goes back to Spain. Here, Spain might be under some pressure to try to satisfy some of the demands of the separatists, also because of how assertive or even aggressive was the way in which Spain dealt with the referendum so far. We saw yesterday the president of the European Council implying that Spain should refrain from the use of force. So there might be some sort of compromises that Spain needs to do as well.
Okay, abstaining from force, because there is the risk there, isn't it, that tensions will be rising, and we will get to this point. But what about the elections? He's very much bargaining on the unionist parties to give him the result he wants. But how much of a risky bet is this for Mr Rajoy?
I think it's very interesting. I think it's a very clever move from Rajoy, because actually now the ball, in a way, is in the court of the separatists. So what will they do? Will they run for the elections as if they still are part of Spain, or will they abstain from the elections but then risk losing power and control over Catalonia?
Okay, George Kiddis, thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Well, my colleague Tim Wilcox is in the Catalan capital, Barcelona. And Tim, you've been there over the last few days, quite a momentous time. We've been hearing from Mr Puigdemont. What's he been saying today?
Well, Mr Puigdemont gave a pre-recorded address, we think, from Girona. That is the town where he was mayor, from the local mayor's office there. And in it, really, we are in a parallel universe, because he doesn't consider himself sacked from the position as Catalan president, because he says the referendum on October the 1st was legal. 90% of people voted for him on a turnout of 43%. So he carries on as normal. But the key thing he was saying to Catalan people, of course, many millions of whom don't support him, they want to stay with Madrid. But his message was one of a pacifist response to anything that was happening now. He said, we have our own laws, we have our own system, so basically I am still in charge, but when Madrid takes over, he's calling for peaceful resistance, so no mass demonstrations called at the moment. I think what will be interesting is to see what happens on Monday morning when civil servants, the Mossos, begin their working week. Mossos are the local police officers here, Mossos de Escuadra, because they have been taken over by Madrid. The information or the advice they've been given is to stay neutral in this crisis, but it'll be interesting to see whether they follow the orders of the people who've been put in place by Madrid, or whether some of them will carry on listening to Mr Puigdemont himself. Mr Puigdemont seems very relaxed, actually, because at the time that statement was going out, he was spotted having lunch in a restaurant in Girona with, we understand, his wife and family and friends. So he seems very calm about the situation, and I think there's relief after last night, because I was speaking to some of the people very close to him. There's relief that Madrid didn't come in hard immediately and try to arrest them. But that could still happen over the next few days.
Very quickly, Tim, do people, because to us it sounds confusing, do people in Barcelona know what's going on?
No, they don't really, and I'm sorry, there's another demonstration going on behind me, nothing to do with independence. I've been ringing around people close to Mr Puigdemont, people close to the coalition that he formed, in fact some members of that coalition, and they still don't know as well. He seems to be relying on a very tight, close-knit band of about 20 people, and they're keeping their cards very close to their chest, because it is still a game of cat and mouse with Madrid, and they don't want things to leak. They want to be able to respond in a very strategic way with every move that Madrid takes.
Okay, Tim Wilcox in Barcelona there. Thank you very much.